Well, hello everyone. I hope you all are doing good. Today we are going to start female reproductive system. Well, so if we look at the female reproductive system, we find that it is mainly composed of uterus. So this entire part is uterus. Okay, a pair of oviduct, or also known as uterine tube, a pair of ovary, vagina, and external genitalia. Okay, so let me write it here. So the female reproductive system is mainly made up of uterus, right? Second, a pair of fallopian tube. Third, a pair of ovaries. Fourth, vagina. And fifth, external genitalia. Okay, so the female reproductive system is mainly made up of these five things: uterus, a pair of fallopian tubes, which are also known as uterine tube or oviducts, a pair of ovaries, vagina, and the external genitalia. Okay, great. So this figure shows you the first four, that is uterus, fallopian tube, ovaries, and vagina. The external genitalia requires another image, okay, because we cannot see in this. It is not possible to depict both in one image. Okay, great. So let us look at one of these one by one in good detail. So let us start with ovaries. Can you see ovaries? Let me mark it out. So let me use blue. So can you see ovary? There are two of it. That is, one pair of ovaries are present in each normal female, right? And these ovaries are almond shaped. Can you see? So they are like the shape of an almond, okay, a nut. And it is around from here to here, if you measure, it is around 2 to 4 centimeter. Okay, so it is 2 to 4 centimeter in length. What it is composed of, what is its function, we will see later. Okay, but as of now, let me tell you that if you see inside ovary, the whole ovary is divided into two parts. Okay, and most of the gametogenesis occurs in the outer part, that is the cortex. Okay, so the main function of ovary is the gametogenesis, that is the production of ovum. Okay, apart from that, it also produces certain hormones, but that we will see later on, not in this lecture. Great. So these are ovaries. We are, today in this lecture we are only going to see the overview. Okay, in detail we will talk later. Great. So these are the two ovaries. When we talk about the position where these ovaries are, can you see they are attached on the either side of the uterus, right? So they are attached on the either lateral side of the uterus, one on the left, the other on the right. Okay, great. So they are present on the lateral side of the uterus, and they are attached with uterus with this circular connective tissue, right? Now this circular connective tissue is called round ligament. This is called round ligament. याद रखिएगा इसको. So ovaries are attached with the uterine wall with the help of round ligament. Okay, so there are two round ligaments, one on the either side of the uterus, which are attached with the one on either side of the uterus, and they're attached with one ovary each. Great. Now, this round ligament is not the only ligament which is keeping the position of ovary fixed. Okay, apart from this round ligament, यहाँ पे एक और चीज है जिसको हम बोलते हैं broad ligament. Can you see here? Broad ligament. What is this broad ligament? Can you see this thin membranous structure which is going all the way from here, taking a turn over this and making a wrap? Great. Now this is called broad ligament. Okay, and then this broad ligament is also helping in fixing the position of ovary. Okay, not only ovary but also the uterus. So this is broad ligament. So the moral of the story, ovary is held at its position with the help of round ligament and the broad ligament. Okay, great. So we have seen ovary and how it is fixed at its position, that is on the either side of the uterus. Apart from this, how the ovary gets its nutrition. Great. So it gets its nutrition with the or from the ovarian artery and vein, right? So mainly it gets from artery, and whatever waste is then taken away through the vein. Great. So ovarian arteries and veins, so these come along the line of the round ligament. Great. After the ovary, what we find is suspensory ligament. Can you see here? Suspensory ligament of ovary. Now this is the ligament with which this ovary is suspended from top. So this part is suspensory ligament and this part is round ligament. Okay, these two are different. If we see here, this is suspensory ligament and this is round ligament. This is round ligament, but this one is suspensory ligament. The ovarian artery and vein reaches up to the ovary with or along the line of suspensory ligament. Okay, not the round ligament, through the suspensory ligament. Okay, great. Now apart from ovary, what we see prominent structure in female reproductive system is the uterus. It is the most prominent structure. See, this whole structure is uterus. Okay, now uterus is sometimes also known as womb. Okay, now this uterus itself is divided into three parts. What are they? Number one is fundus or fundic part. Okay, fundus. Now what is this? It is, let me erase all this first. So fundus is this upper part of uterus. Okay, so this entire area of uterus is called fundic region. This is called fundic region or fundus or fundic part of uterus. All are the same thing. Great. Apart from this, if we talk about this whole structure, this is called the body of uterus. Can you see here? The body of uterus. Okay, so uterus is divided into fundus, body, and the distal part, that is last wala part of this uterus, is called cervix. Can you see here? This is called cervix. So this uterus is divided into three parts: fundus, body, and cervix. Great. This is on the basis of location. Now this uterus, okay, which is a muscular bag-like structure, and it is the size of a fist, of a fist. So in normal condition, the size of uterus is not bigger than a tight fist. Okay, so it is just like this much. That's it. Okay. Now, in case of pregnancy, it obviously it is going to expand, but in normal conditions, it is just the size of a fist, not more than this. Great. And if you see, there is not this much gap in the uterus. The gap is really, really less. Okay. It's all a thick muscular wall that you can see. Okay, great. Now, if you see the cross section of this uterus or uterine wall, you find that it is again made up of 3 layers. Okay, the outermost layer is called perimetrium. The outermost layer is called perimetrium. Okay, or sometimes it is also called exometrium or epimetrium. That's all the same thing, right? So perimetrium. Now, after the perimetrium, you will find a thick layer of smooth muscle. Can you see here this part? This part, or even this part? This thick layer of muscle, smooth muscle, is called myometrium. So this uterine wall or the wall of the uterus is divided into 3 parts. Outermost perimetrium, middle is myometrium, which is the thickest part and is made up of smooth muscles, and the innermost, this one, is called endometrium. Okay, so innermost is endometrium. I hope it is easy to remember. Outer perimetrium, middle myometrium because it is made up of muscle, and innermost is endometrium. Great. So we are talking of the uterus, and we see that uterus is the size of a tight fist. Great. Secondly, it is divided into 3 parts, that is fundus, body, and cervix. Great. If we see the cross section or histology, we find that the entire uterine wall is made up of 3 layers again. These are perimetrium, myometrium, and endometrium. Okay, great. Now again, let me remove all these things. Now, if we talk about the shape, what is the shape of the uterus? Can you see? The shape is something like this. Great. So it looks like an inverted pear. Okay, inverted pear, the fruit. So the shape of uterus is of inverted pear. Great. So we have seen the shape, size, and different parts of uterus and the histology of uterus. Okay. Now, uterus is the most prominent part of the female reproductive system because it is the site where implantation will occur. It is the site where the embryo develops into fetus. Okay, so reproductively, the whole gestation period is carried out inside the uterus. Okay, great. Now, since this uterine wall is thick and it is made up of smooth muscle, it requires blood supply. Not only this, during pregnancy, this endometrium layer thickens. Okay, and it requires a lot of nutrition. To provide nutrition, there is uterine artery and vein. These are specialized artery and vein to provide nutrition or nourishment to the uterus. Great. So after this uterus, let us see the fallopian tube or oviduct. So when we see the oviduct, again these are one pair, so one on the either side of the uterus, and they actually emerges on the top corner of the uterus, one on the either side. Can you see here? So this is oviduct or fallopian tube or uterine tube. All are the same thing. Fallopian tube, oviduct or uterine tube. These all are the same thing. Now, if we look at the uterine tube or fallopian tube, it is distally or it is divided into these four parts: infundibulum, ampulla, isthmus. Okay, sorry, the three parts, that is infundibulum, ampulla and isthmus. Okay, the distal most part is infundibulum, and this infundibulum ends in fimbriae. Now these fimbriae are finger-like projections. These fimbriae are finger-like projections which actually cover, or which are partially covering the ovary. Can you see here? So these are fimbriae. These finger-like projections are actually fimbriae which are partially over the ovary, or they are partially covering the ovary. Why it is so? So that once ovulation occurs, once the ovum comes out of ovary, it will collect it. Okay, so this is hovering over this ovary so that it will collect, so as to minimize the chance of drifting away ovum from the fallopian tube. Okay, so this is just they have to catch the ovum, and the best way is to partially cover the ovary. Great. So these are fimbriae, these are finger-like projections. So only these finger-like projections are called fimbriae. These are part of infundibulum. Now, if we talk of infundibulum are the distal part of the oviduct, यानी कि सबसे दूर वाला अंत वाला हिस्सा है. Okay, and this infundibulum is trumpet shaped. It is trumpet shaped. Why we call trumpet shaped? Because you can see it is, sorry, it is something like this. Okay, so this diameter increases all of a sudden. That's why it gives a trumpet like appearance, hence we call it trumpet shaped. So infundibulum is trumpet shaped. Okay, now if you ask me, this entire part is the infundibulum. This entire part is infundibulum, and from this up to this part is ampulla. Now from this part onward is the isthmus. Okay, this is the isthmus, and this is the uterine part of fallopian tube. Okay, so this fallopian tube is divided into different parts: isthmus, ampulla and infundibulum, out of which isthmus is the narrowest, ampulla is next, means broader than isthmus, and infundibulum is the broadest part. Great. And this infundibulum at its end have finger-like projections called fimbriae, so as they will help in collecting the released ovum from the ovary. Okay, now later we will see that this ampulla, the junction Okay, the ampullary junction is very much important. We will talk later when we will be talking about the fertilization, right? So we have seen oviduct as well. Now the oviduct is lined with ciliated epithelium. Okay, so it is lined with ciliated epithelium. That is, the cells here inside on the inner side have cilia on top of it. So it is ciliated epithelium. This again we will see later. Great. Now, after the uterus, oviduct and ovary, let's move to the cervix. Now see here, this part is called cervix. Okay, this part is called cervix, and if you see here, there is a thickening and then again there is a gap. So this makes a orifice, यानी कि एक sphincter यहाँ पे बनता है, एक orifice बनता है, and this is called the internal opening orifice. This is called internal opening orifice of the cervix. Similarly, here there is again one orifice called external orifice. Okay, external cervical orifice, and this whole structure is called cervix. This is called cervix. Now, this part, this cervical part, is mostly filled with a mucus-like fluid called cervical plaque. This is called cervical plaque. Okay, great. So this was cervix. Now, when we move out or come downward to the cervix, this cervix, through this cervix, the uterine space opens into vagina. Opens into vagina. Now, vagina is a tubular structure which is meant for coitus, so that the insemination can take place here and the semen can be deposited. Okay, so this is the main function of vagina. Therefore it is a tubular structure, and inside this tubular structure there are these ridges. These ridges are called vaginal rugae. Okay, these ridges are called vaginal rugae, and finally this vagina will open into the external genitalia. Again, vagina has its own artery called vaginal artery, which supplies blood to it, and it has its own nerve supplies. Well, so this is in brief the overview of female reproductive system. Okay, now let's move and see the external genitalia. Well, now coming to the external genitalia, this picture shows you the elaborate structures of external genitalia of human female, right? So the very first structure that we can see here is mons pubis. Okay, now what is this mons pubis? It is a raised surface. Can you see here? It is a raised surface. It is something like this. Correct? So it is a raised surface, and this raising is because under this there is pubic bone. Okay, so pubic bone is just underneath this, and there is deposition of fat tissue. As a result, this is slightly raised and dome shaped. Okay, so this slightly raised dome shaped area is called mons pubis, and obviously, as you can see here, this area has pubic hairs. Okay, now after this mons pubis, we see that there is this external genitalia starts, and what we see here is there is an outer flap of skin. Can you see this one? this part, or maybe on this side, this outer flap of skin, sorry, this whole outer flap of skin is called labia majora or labium majus. Okay, this is called labium majus or labia majora. Okay, now it is the outer labium. Labium means lip-like structure. Okay, so it is outer lip-like structure which have pubic hairs. Great. Now inner to the, okay, let me write it, labia majus, or we called labia majora. Okay, now on the inner side of this labia majora, what you can see here is this fold of skin. Can you see this reddish fold of skin? This reddish fold of skin. Now this fold, this one, is called labium minus, or we also call it labia minora. Great. So there are these two fold of skin. The outer one is called labia majora and it has a stratum corneum over it. There is presence of pubic hairs on it. On the inner side there is skin, there is this fold of skin called labia minora. It is more reddish in color because there is no stratum corneum, there is no dead layer on it. Okay, it is more sensitive and it has no pubic hairs. Okay, so this is called labia minora. So these are two labias or lip-like structures. Great, labia majora and labia minora. Now what we see is immediately on the inner side of the labia minora, what we find here is a tissue here called clitoris. Okay, now here is clitoris. This is clitoris, and clitoris is homologous to the glans penis of the human male reproductive system. Okay, so males have glans penis. Clitoris is a kind of rudimentary glans penis. Okay, it is homologous organ. Now just as the glans penis has prepuce, the outer retractable fold of skin, similarly in female reproductive system the clitoris has this fold of skin over this clitoris, that is called prepuce of clitoris. Okay, so this upper part, this skin is called prepuce. Great, so you have clitoris and prepuce. Now immediately if you go down to the clitoris, what you find is the urethral opening. Now in case of female, the urethral and the genital opening are separate, they are distinct. Okay, unlike males have the same common passage, but in females these passages are separate. Urethra opens through a separate pore, whereas vagina opens separately, so both are separate. Okay, so this upper pore, see here, is the urethral opening or urethral meatus. Okay, and on the side of it you find a small gland called paraurethral gland or skinny glands. Okay, great, so they open here. Now if you move further downward to the urethral opening, what you will find is the vaginal opening. Can you see here? This is the vaginal opening, and on the other side are the spaces called vestibule, and on the either side, on the downside of the vaginal opening, you will find the opening of greater vestibular gland, or also called Bartholin gland, and this is the analogous structure to the Cowper's gland in male, or bulbourethral glands. Okay, so Bartholin gland in female and Cowper's gland in male. Great. Now, so I'm just omitting all these things. Now, on this vaginal opening, there is something called hymenal caruncle. Now, hymenal caruncle is the place from which a flap of connective tissue grows or skin grows, and it covers the vaginal opening. This covering is called hymen. That is called hymen. And this hymen is actually a protective layer. It covers up. Now, what I'm going to tell you is very important. Traditionally, in old days, hymen was considered as the virginity test. Okay. Now, it is not appropriate to treat hymen as the virginity test. The reason being, this hymen is a very fragile flap of skin, and it may rupture on its own during sporting or sports like cycling, horse riding, or even football playing. So, and these hymen are of different types. Okay, are of literally different types, like 5 or 6 different types, and some of the hymens literally have larger pores in it, so one may mistake it as no hymen. Okay, and it is not necessary that every female should have hymen, and it should not be treated as the test of virginity, not at all. Okay, this is I should say wrong thing being inculcated in our society for very long time, and as a learned persons, we should be helping the society to overcome this. Okay, wrongdoing. It is wrong. So this is hymen. Now, after this hymen, this whole flap of skin, that is labia majora and minora, converge, and this whole structure is finished. Now, apart from this, if you further retrace, you'll find there is a scar. There is a line that continues up to the anus. Now, this line is called perineal raphe. Okay. Now, if you have already studied the reproduction in plants, you know what raphe is. Okay, if you don't recall, I would advise you to go and revisit the seed. Okay, so when I taught you seed, there I have spoken of raphe, and it is the same kind of thing. So raphe is a scar. So here also, from this external genitalia up to the anal aperture, there is a vertical scar, and this scar is called perineal raphe. And finally, after the perineal raphe, you will find the anus or anal aperture. Great. So this is all about the external genitalia of human female. Okay. Now, I am concluding this lecture here. So this part we have covered the overview of female reproductive system, including the external genitalia. In the coming video lecture, we will cover in detail the ovary, structure of ovary, and then how the gametogenesis occur in female, that is the production of ovum. Great. So stay tuned, and please take very good care of yourself. We all are awaiting, let's see, let's wait for the government guidelines so that we can again physically meet in the classrooms. Okay. Till then, we will continue these video lectures, and if you have any kind of doubts, any problem, please contact me directly or leave your questions in the comment section. Communication is very essential, and obviously learning is crucial. Time is not going to wait. Okay, next year you have exam, so please keep in mind that it is a competition and you do not have to lag behind. So in this lockdown situation, do not take your studies lightly. Be on your toes because it is competition. Once you are relaxed, you are, slowly you will be falling back, and then when you will awake, you will be having a lot to catch up. So don't do that. Okay, don't be that rabbit. Okay, great. So stay tuned. We will meet in the next video lecture. Thank you.